Hello guys, I'm Dustin Davis and welcome to the channel. Here you'll find everything you need to know about the Lions. The Lions entered this phase of the season carrying championship expectations, yet beneath the optimism lies a pattern of roster gaps that demand immediate attention, gaps that could determine whether Detroit capitalizes on its window or watches it close prematurely. Leadership now faces overlapping challenges. Secondary depth has evaporated through injury. The defense's most valuable asset awaits a contract that will reshape the salary structure, and the pass rush remains dangerously dependent on a single difference maker. Each problem arrives with its own deadline, and the front office's responses will either fortify the foundation or expose how fragile it remains. The next few weeks will clarify whether Detroit's decision-makers can solve these puzzles simultaneously. What happens off the field may prove as consequential as anything that unfolds on Sundays. Let's check out everything that happens in Detroit. Firstly, can I ask for your help? Just leave a like. So many of you watch us daily, and forget that thumbs up. It's a humble way to support and helps more than you know. Thanks a lot. Injuries across the defensive backfield have placed Detroit in a difficult position, forcing the organization to evaluate every available veteran as a potential stopgap. When an experienced player enters the market, teams with depleted rosters must respond immediately. And this week, the Lions discovered that hesitation carries a cost. Detroit's recent effort to add depth at cornerback ended in disappointment, a sequence that revealed both how thin the position has become and how aggressively other organizations will move when they sense opportunity. Multiple injuries have depleted Detroit's secondary over the last two contests, prompting the club to search for veteran reinforcements. DJ Reed landed on injured reserve following a hamstring issue sustained during the Week 4 victory against Cleveland, while Khalil Dorsey joined him on IR after a practice-related wrist injury. Terrion Arnold's shoulder problem, initially appearing severe enough to sideline him long-term after he was carted off against Cincinnati, has since been evaluated more optimistically, suggesting a shorter timeline for return. Detroit targeted veteran Michael Davis as a short-term addition to stabilize the group. The pursuit appeared close to completion until New Orleans intervened with an upgraded proposal. Davis had initially reached agreement on a practice squad arrangement with the Saints, but when Detroit contacted him to finalize a deal, New Orleans elevated its commitment and signed him directly to the 53 roster. The Saints' willingness to guarantee a roster spot secured Davis, leaving Detroit without its intended reinforcement. Davis's decision also hinged on familiarity with New Orleans defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, whom he previously worked under in Los Angeles. That existing relationship with Staley's system provided additional incentive beyond the roster spot guarantee. An undrafted signee from BYU, Davis carries 9 seasons of NFL experience, 7 spent with the Chargers and 1 with Washington. His resume includes over 300 career tackles, several interceptions, and consistent contributions on special teams, alongside the veteran presence that becomes valuable late in campaigns. With Davis no longer an option, the Lions must identify alternate solutions. The team has already brought Arthur Millette onto the practice squad and could promote him or expand the roles of players such as Avonte Maddox and Amik Robertson to support Rock Ya-Sin. The decision will hinge on whether the coaching staff prefers developing internal options or continuing to pursue outside additions. In another development, the organization faces a financial decision that could define the defense for the next half-decade. When a franchise commits to contending, retaining its most impactful performers becomes essential. Aidan Hutchinson's production this season has elevated him into the tier of pass rushers who command transformative contracts, and Detroit now faces a decision that will define its defensive blueprint for years to come. The question facing the organization is no longer whether Hutchinson will be extended, but rather how large the agreement will be and when it will be finalized. That determination carries implications beyond Hutchinson's compensation, affecting Detroit's flexibility to address other defensive needs, including the persistent search for a complementary edge threat. Detroit recognizes Hutchinson's value and has signaled its intention to secure him long-term. The primary variables are the financial scope of the extension and the timeline for completing negotiations now that he has reached eligibility. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that preliminary discussions have occurred between the two sides and characterized Hutchinson as destined for a new deal, acknowledging the market trend in which elite edge rushers now earn compensation comparable to quarterbacks, a standard reinforced by contracts like Michael Parsons. Fowler projected Hutchinson will land among the highest-paid players at his position, even if he does not surpass the largest non-quarterback deals in league history. That forecast aligns with Hutchinson's recent performance. He was tracking toward Defensive Player of the Year recognition before sustaining a leg injury last October and has returned to elite form this season with multiple sacks, quarterback hits, and forced fumbles through the opening weeks. Hutchinson's leg injury last season kept him unavailable until this year's start, and subsequent reports suggested Detroit had raised concerns about opponents targeting his lower body. Adam Schefter conveyed that the organization had brought specific plays to the league's attention, but head coach Dan Campbell later disputed the characterization, publicly labeling the story bogus and denying that anyone within the organization filed an official complaint with the NFL. After a quiet performance in the season opener at Lambeau Field, Hutchinson has exploded, accumulating substantial pressure totals, multiple sacks, quarterback hits, and forced fumbles, the statistics that establish him as Detroit's most dangerous rush weapon. The defense has generated only 8 sacks collectively through 5 games, a figure that places the unit in the lower half of league rankings. That scarcity magnifies Hutchinson's importance. His ability to create disruption compensates for secondary limitations and helps the defense win individual matchups. With difficult opponents approaching and starting cornerbacks limited by injuries, the rationale for locking down a premier edge rusher is clear. Detroit will almost certainly prioritize Hutchinson's extension over pursuing an expensive external alternative, as retaining the homegrown disruptor provides continuity at the defense's most critical position.
Across the division, rival moves have sparked fresh speculation about Detroit's own trade market activity. The NFC North has undergone significant transformation this offseason, and Detroit's pass rush depth now appears to be the most glaring deficiency preventing a legitimate championship run. Acquiring a dependable second edge rusher would relieve the burden on Aidan Hutchinson and present opposing offenses with an additional threat to account for. Kwity Paye's name has circulated in trade rumors consistently, and if Indianapolis decides to make him available, Detroit represents a natural fit: geographic proximity, demonstrated production, and a cost structure that could be more manageable than chasing an established superstar. Kwity Paye has appeared in trade speculation periodically over the last 12 months. Should Indianapolis choose to reconfigure its edge rotation, the Lions would be a logical and appealing landing spot. Bleacher Report's Mo Moton proposed the Washington Commanders as a potential trading partner, outlining a framework centered on a 2026 third-round selection and a 2027 fifth-rounder in exchange for Paye and a 2026 seventh. Considering Detroit's current need for additional pass rush reinforcement, the Lions qualify as equally realistic suitors. Detroit already features Aidan Hutchinson among the league's elite young edge defenders, but has failed to identify a reliable running mate. Marcus Davenport has been plagued by injuries, and Josh Paschal will start 2025 on the reserve NFI list, leaving the rotation shallow and overly reliant on situational contributors rather than an every-down partner. Paye, a Michigan alum, would reduce the frequency of chips, double teams, and disadvantageous assignments on Hutchinson, creating cleaner rush lanes across the defensive front. Selected 21st overall by Indianapolis in 2021, Paye entered the league with expectations as a physically imposing, high-ceiling edge. His production has grown incrementally each year: 4.0 sacks as a rookie, 6.0 in his second season despite missing games, and consecutive campaigns of 8.5 and 8.0 sacks in 2023 and 2024. He also recorded a career-best 10 tackles for loss and accumulated 12 quarterback hits across 15 appearances last season. The Colts signaled their confidence by exercising his fifth-year option last spring, securing him through 2025 at approximately $13 million, a reasonable salary for a player who consistently demonstrates durability and versatility against both the run and pass. That said, Indianapolis's depth chart now includes Leatu Latu and JT Tuimoloau, introducing competition along the edge and potentially increasing Paye's availability in trade discussions. The NFC North's seismic roster shifts, highlighted by Green Bay's acquisition of Micah Parsons, raise the urgency for Detroit to secure a dependable second rusher. Paye does not need to replicate Parsons' superstar trajectory. His value resides in generating consistent pressure, maintaining contained discipline, and remaining healthy. Recent edge trades have commanded significant draft capital, but Paye's combination of age and steady output could be acquired for a more modest package. A 2026 third-round pick accompanied by a conditional fifth-rounder represents a reasonable opening offer. For a Detroit front office that balances fiscal responsibility with roster enhancement, Paye presents a practical route to meaningful pass rush improvement without sacrificing substantial future resources. At the same time, one potential acquisition has fans of a divisional opponent holding their breath in collective dread. The NFC North's competitive landscape ensures that a single high-impact move can shift the division hierarchy. For Chicago supporters, the possibility of Detroit adding another elite pass rusher is particularly troubling. Trey Hendrickson has emerged as a plausible target for the Lions, and the scenario prompts immediate concerns. How might Cincinnati's season trajectory influence his availability, and how damaging would his arrival be for the Bears' already vulnerable offensive line? Speculation linking Trey Hendrickson to Detroit carries more credibility than many fans would like to acknowledge. Sarah Bettinger of NFL Spin Zone identified Hendrickson as a trade candidate for the Lions, a suggestion that alarmed Bears supporters because Hendrickson is an established pressure creator who routinely converts rush opportunities into disruption and sacks, a particularly troubling prospect for Chicago's inconsistent offensive front. Hendrickson will reach 31 years old in December and is scheduled to become a free agent following the season, diminishing Cincinnati's leverage heading into next offseason. Given the contract tensions that have surfaced during his tenure with the Bengals, the notion that he could depart Cincinnati is not unrealistic. Cincinnati's decision to add Joe Flacco complicates the equation. If Flacco stabilizes the offense and keeps the team competitive, the Bengals may opt to retain Hendrickson rather than trade him. However, should Cincinnati struggle, the organization could be motivated to recover draft assets before his contract expires and he enters free agency. That dynamic creates an unusual rooting interest for Bears fans. Hope Cincinnati wins enough games to keep Hendrickson unavailable. Any outcome that limits Detroit's upgrade options indirectly benefits Chicago. Detroit and Chicago do not face each other again until the regular season finale, so a mid-season acquisition for the Lions could alter the division's playoff landscape. The Lions already defeated the Bears earlier this season. Adding a veteran finisher like Hendrickson would further complicate Chicago's path to recovery and any aspirations for late-season momentum. So where do you stand on these critical decisions? Should the Lions have moved faster to secure Davis before New Orleans intervened, or are there better cornerback options still available on the market? When it comes to Aidan Hutchinson's extension, what's the right number? Should Detroit match top-of-market deals, or is there a threshold where the contract becomes too risky? Would Hendrickson be a great addition for Detroit? Leave it in the comments. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe. Join our community and get exclusive content every day. We always bring you everything happening in Detroit. See you soon.